The people who love you, they want what's best for them, typically, which is that you're safe, you're secure, everything's okay. They don't really want what's quote unquote best for you, because that's actually the scary thing. Real growth happens when you take huge risks and you potentially fail and you realize that you're not going to die. And so I realized that my loved ones were some of the reasons that were actually holding me back. Super supportive, but they were always saying things like, is the grass always greener, Cody? You know, what about this next thing? Is that really going to make you happy? You know, are you sure it's not you? Is it them? And in some cases, they're right. I just have that ridiculous urge to keep growing and doing more. But that made me jump from 5 finance companies in like 10 years or something like that, because I thought it was the individual company, and I didn't realize, oh no, I'm just like unemployable. I want to work for myself. I'm not going to be great at being somebody else's employee. But it was the stories that I heard again and again from my family, because they wanted to keep me safe. Very kind, but not right for me.
Why do you think most people don't ever reach financial freedom in their lives? Do you think it's a psychology thing, a mindset thing? Obviously, let's take, the very practical elements out of the equation. So, severe hardship, poverty, all of those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But people that are in that sort of middle layer, that are comfortable, why do they never, some of those people never really reach a point of financial freedom?
I think humans defer to the paths they've seen before them. I think so often we follow in our father's or our mother's footsteps. And that's why I think the internet's really powerful, is you have an opportunity to now choose the family footsteps you want to follow into. So one, I used to think it was just a knowledge gap, but then I went to this event and I was talking to my friend about it, and she said that the facilitators did something really cool. It was a group of women, imagine like 40 women in a room, right? And they're there to talk about finances. And in this room, they said, okay, everybody close your eyes. And I want you to picture money. Picture money right now. And then I want you to turn your body into the shape you feel when you hear the word money, right? And so 30 women, all eyes closed, they take whatever shape. And she goes, now open your eyes and look around. And, my friend was explaining to me how most people in the room were like fetal position. They were like really close, somewhere on the ground, some were covering their eyes. So in a room of 30 relatively successful women, their reaction was like attack, shame, guilt for money. And she was like, she was standing there with her arms open wide, like, give me the money. And when I think about my relationship with money, it's the same thing. I'm like, if I think about money, I'm like, yeah, it's over here. Like my hands are up, like I am here for it. But most people have this weird emotional attachment to money. And so I used to think that people on the internet, I like Tony Robbins, but like Tony Robbins or whatever, who do a lot of the motivational stuff, I kind of didn't get it. I'm like, just give me the tactics, skip the other thing. And then I realized that most people have really bad stories that they tell themselves about money. And you could tell, it'd be interesting, your next speech, you could try it. I tried it at one of mine, same thing. Men and women holding each other like they're being beaten when somebody talks about money. The average human feels that way. And so I think it all comes down to what we believe, which is hard for somebody in finance like me to say, Typically, I would think, well, if you knew what to do, you could just do it. But that's not the case. You have to believe that you can do it. And the only way I can figure out to get more people to believe that they can do it is to show more people who are super normal or, in fact, below average doing the damn thing. But if I had the answer to that, that'd be the $1 million question. I read a stat in the U.S. that only 1 in 10 people dies wealthy in the U.S., that most people die broke and young. And I thought that was fascinating, because we're at economic high times, like lower poverty levels than ever before. But still, most people die at least without extra cash to pass on to the next generation. Why do you think people don't reach financial freedom? Or most people die without a lot of cash?
I think, obviously, it's a very complex topic, but I think I really resonate with the emotional, psychological side of things that you described. It's the same reason why most people don't go to the gym or eat healthy. Yeah. Money is inherently emotional. When I had no money, I was reckless with money.
Right.
All the gambling shops are in the areas where people don't have money. There's something deeply psychological about money. So when I was working in those call centers, if I got paid £1,000 at the end of the month, I would the same day go and buy a TV or an Xbox, like a PlayStation, for about £600-700. I would not pay my rent to go and buy that PlayStation. And sometimes I'd buy the PlayStation without having a TV. There was just something psychologically attached to the dopamine rush or the sense of self-worth that I got from owning the shiny thing. When I got money, my relationship with money became amazing.
Yeah.
I stopped buying designer things. I stopped wasting it. I didn't feel a need to show off or buy, Rolexes or whatever. So I was able to preserve wealth more. There's a really interesting relationship with money on both ends of the spectrum. When you have less of it, it's harder. It's often because of certain psychological things in certain people. I was one of them. It's harder to hold on to. And when you have more of it, it feels easier to hoard. And people, and more broadly on the subject of why people don't reach financial freedom, I think the modern world tells us that we can get rich quick.
Yeah.
And when you think about how people build wealth, we think about the Warren Buffetts of the world, it's so boring and slow. And who's going to buy that book?
Yeah.
Be a billionaire at 87. Fuck what? I'm not going to be able to, dance in the nightclub at 87. So why do I want $1 billion then?
Yeah.
That's why the NFT thing and the crypto scam, this whatever, is also appealing to people.
Yeah.
Because it's quick.
Yeah, it's true. Well, I actually was reading somewhere a story about in South Africa, in the slums, they have the highest concentration of the largest televisions per square foot of the house. So that if you've been there, and I've actually never been, so I can't validate, but you will see very small little rooms with huge televisions. And I thought that was interesting. But it actually makes sense because maybe it comes down to a belief that people don't think they're ever going to get out. And so they think the only chance of getting out is going into whatever the short-term pleasure is. It's like if you never think you're going to escape your everyday reality, which is actually kind of miserable, then you're going to buy the PlayStation because why wouldn't you? Why would you save and try to get out when you've never seen anybody else get out?
But what does the PlayStation means so much more to you in that moment than a PlayStation. It means it's self-worth.
Yeah.
It's one tiny token that you are successful.
Yeah.
That you can show your friends, or that you can just even fear and self-esteem. It's so much more than a PlayStation. The thing that invalidates you, in this case money, will be the thing that has the greatest chance of making you feel valid. And so if in my house, the lack of money was always the thing that caused my shame.
Yeah.
So the minute I got any of it, I would overcompensate by trying to buy some shit to show people.
Yeah.
And then when I had loads of it, who gave a fuck?
Yeah, that's true.
That void was almost filled. So
yeah, it's true. I also think it's hard. I mean, I remember many times where, I remember checking accounts always being overdrawn, and seeing the little negative pin on my email and cell phone that you couldn't. There was nothing else in there. When I was in college and trying to figure it out before I made any money, I think I made like $37,000 in my first job out of college. So I definitely remember all that. But I think if you can have this belief and you can get around other humans who have had success or are striving for success, your aperture just opens in a different way. And then maybe the commercials and the ads and the things that make you feel like you want to buy all the everyday stuff go away. I kind of viscerally get mad when I see people who have wealth showing images of them in their Bentleys or Rolls Royces, or, I have a nice watch, but you don't see me show that shit anywhere. When people are showing themselves in their private planes or whatever, I just think they're missing the whole boat. And then what they're doing is they're perpetuating the PlayStation situation. They're doing it again and again, and they're doing it because it doesn't make them happy anymore to have it. That's not enough. I have to show a bunch of people I got it. And what they should actually be showing is, man, I just invested in my first stock. That's fucking cool. If you look at my stuff, it's like I have laundromats and car washes behind me all the time in them. Because that's the stuff that you should try to strive for. You can actually pass it down. It can pay you back. You can buy as many PlayStations as you want. But I think, to your point, the other thing is we are all, have you ever felt, when you're around other people and they're sort of negative, or they want to talk about people the whole time, and like how that energy feels. That's like, it's draining, right? Even if you kind of get caught up in it, it's fun for a second. At the end, you're like, fuck, I feel kind of gross for having that combo. I think it's the same with ads and stuff that we take into us. And so they're basically creating our stories for us in social media by showing all this fancy stuff. And then we start to have this mimetic desire, this external desire and belief that we want it, that we need it, but we don't. We're just becoming a replica of the people that we're surrounding ourselves with, which are now social media.
There's no, even growing up, there's no laundry mats and 50 cents videos.
Yeah, that
you know what I mean?
Should be.
It's all sports cars and mansions and stuff. So that was my North Star as a young black man. It was like, how do I get a mansion and a sports car? And in the first page of my diary at 18 years old, it says 4 things I want to achieve before I'm 25. Bear in mind, I was shoplifting pizzas at the time, and I was a university dropout, not speaking to my parents, with 2 CCJs, which is like when the court is coming for you for debts. I wrote, a Range Rover Sport will be my first car. Didn't have a driving license until I was 23. I'll make £1 million. I work on my body image again, because I'm a very small kid, and I'll get a girlfriend. Those were my 4 goals in life, and they were totally influenced by the outside world. That's why my book is called Happy Sexy Millionaire, because I thought if I became a sexy millionaire, then I would become everything I needed to be. And I was so wrong. I mean,
Yep.
I don't regret the decisions I made, because you can't really in hindsight, but I wish I had better influences, to say the least.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why content's so important. You know, I think about Warren Buffett's annual shareholders meeting, right? Which you can go and attend if you own stock, and you don't have to own much of it. And I think, you know, people made fun of me when I started creating content online, because they were like, oh, big, successful private equity person, now you're taking your own money. And if you really had companies that made $80 million in revenue, that means you're worth a couple $100 million bucks. And if that's the case, why would you be making Instagrams and TikToks? And that doesn't make much sense, right? And my reaction at the time was, I think we should make it just as entertaining talking about stuff that makes us money as we do stuff that costs us money. I think probably that'd be good. And if we could do that, that'd be a worthy mission. And also, it'd be fun to try to do it. I don't know if we could do it. But yeah, maybe the next rap videos. I mean, and now, for honestly, my favorite deals to break down are the celebrity deals, because they're fascinating. Like The Rock. Have you ever looked at The Rock's content from a product perspective? Brilliant. So The Rock, if you look at his content, so let's just talk Instagram. If you go to The Rock's Instagram, I want you to count how many pieces of content he has that have product placement in them of companies he owns. And the answer is close to 80%. So almost every single post The Rock does is an ad. But what do we really see? We see sexy tequila. We see abs. We see him with his beautiful wife. Like, we see these other things, but we don't realize that every single one of them is an ad. And so what if we could flip that around? Like, wouldn't it be cool if The Rock talked about the deals he did too, and how he did that? Now, he goes back and he talks about how he stole Snickers bars, similar to you with pizza. But I think even for celebrities, they don't want to talk about the deals that they did. They just want to talk about all the money that they have. It almost seems like faux pas somehow to talk about the deals and how good at deal making they are. Like Reese Witherspoon, billionaire now. Why? Because Reese Witherspoon, little sweet Susie Sunshine in Pink, basically took a book club and said to authors, I'll give you part of my platform for you to talk about your book, because I'm lovely. It's free. You're going to sell a bunch of books. It's tiny, insignificant detail. I'd like the future rights to turn your book into a movie, and I'll pay you some sum, or I'll have a right of first refusal, aka I get the right to buy it before anybody else, and I'll pay you then for it. The author goes, amazing, Reese, of course, perfect. They come on, Reese basically A/B tests, so tests out which books do best, and depending on which books do best, Reese buys their movie rights and makes movies that create, tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. But Reese doesn't tell that story. Reese tells the Susie Sunshine story of her selling the books. I think the other story is more interesting and more people could learn from it.
So when I hear these deals, and when I see these big success stories, we've got Kylie, we've got the Rihannas of the world, we've got Ryan Reynolds, The Rock, Reese Witherspoon. The question that we must always be asking ourselves, I certainly ask it, is, was that them? Or did they just have a great advisor, a financial advisor that came along at some point and went, by the way, you're do it like this.
Yeah.
And you'll make fucking shitloads.
Yeah. Well, my question is, who cares? I still want to know the secret sauce.
Yeah.
And so none of them are that dumb where they don't know what the deal was, right? Like, even if somebody was smarter than them, which could be, Reese may have a genius behind her, The Rock too, probably Danny Garcia, his wife, his manager. Kylie, yeah, the goat, which is weird to say about the Kardashians, but, behind them, the mom, for sure. But they're smart enough. When you create that much wealth and you do it continuously multiple times, like Reese has done with Draper James too, you definitely know what's going on. So I think like sharing those secrets would be cool. But that's usually where people go. People go, well, they're famous, so it's easy for them. Or, who did the deal? And I'm like, yeah, maybe it's Scooter Braun behind the scenes, but I'd like to know how they structured that.
The reason they don't tell you, though, is because it feels like it's the opposite of the authenticity that they're trying to maintain.
Nailed it.
So if they came out and went, listen, the way we did you on that whiskey deal, I got 50%. My job was to post it with the abs every week, and you guys fucking bought it, and now it's worth $1 billion. Here's the how-to. They can't do that deal again because everything they touch, I'm going to think, it's a deal.
Well, I think you could do it in a way that was real. Like, you could be like, we did this business, and maybe you could give some of it away. Like, you could be like, if The Rock makes $1 billion off of Terramana, couldn't he then say, we would never have done $1 billion deal unless you guys bought it. And because you bought it, we're going to give you some equity. We're going to allow people to buy into equity at the company at a lower valuation and have access to it. I mean, that's kind of what venture capital and crowdfunding does, right? So, I mean, they can do whatever they want to do, but I think there's so many ways to get around it. And maybe there's nothing but downside because people these days get mad when people make money. And so maybe people would hate that. But God, I think it'd make a lot more humans rich for people to be honest about how they got there, I
reflect, as you were speaking, on a conversation I had with a cab driver in the UK. He said to me, you're that Diary of a CEO guy. I listen to your podcast in the cabs and, I'm working 3 jobs. This is one of them. And I'm trying to, what he was saying was, I'm trying to find financial freedom.
Yeah.
I'm working this cab job. I'm doing this other little thing on the side, but I'm trying to find the way. To get out of this life and he was scrambling around. He was saying to me, my friend does some stuff in Africa and in Ethiopia, and he's got something there with property, so I might go there. And there's this other thing I might do. Those people, those are the ones that I'm trying to speak to today. Those ones that are like looking for the way out.
Mm-hmm. Well, first of all, cab drivers and Uber drivers are my people.
Yeah.
I
love them.
Yeah, I always chat with them. Well, and they always listen to my stuff because they know small business. Like, they have a friend that owns a laundromat, or they have a friend that works inside of a car wash or owns a car wash. These are like blue collar businesses, right? But usually what I would say to them is something I actually said to one of the guys that's with me today. I'd say, try to break your frame entirely. Most people look for individual next tactics. So they're like, what can I do over the next 1, 2, 3 years to get here? One thing I think is really helpful to do is say, okay, you have a 3-year goal, break the frame. How could you achieve that goal in 6 months? What would be something so different, so out of the box, so big that the goal that was going to take you 3 to 6 years is now going to take you 6 months? And I want you to spend some time on that. Spend a weekend deeply thinking about that idea. Because what you're going to do is you're going to come up with ideas for the person that could be the impetus for your financial freedom, or for the business risk that's super smart, but you haven't been wanting to take it. And I think most people, they wade in the shallows of life, and you cannot have massive change by going shallow. And so I like to say, when people want an answer, I like to ask them a question, because I think they know. I think they know deep down inside, but they get scared just like I did. And so they wait years to do the thing that they knew they should have done earlier. And I don't think you need a guru or a podcast to tell you that. I think you've got to break your frame and say, I'm super capable. If I was going to do this crazy thing in 6 months, if anything was possible, if I really believed in myself, what could I do? Who could I go to that could make an unfair advantage for me? And I do think that book, Who Not How, people usually read it as leaders because it's a lot about hiring, but I think it's actually about life. And I think usually your answer to freedom is a who, not a how. Because often for hustlers and people who are going to work hard, 1 or 2 people who are very wealthy or who run big businesses. There are a few people in your ecosystem that you could go to and become their hustler for them. And that can lead to fantastic financial reward because most people are not relentless in the pursuit of the things that they want. If you can be relentless, you can accomplish way more than the average person.